Hi guys and welcome to my first Final Fantasy VII Remake podcast. Today's podcast is sponsored by Gaming Lad. You can find them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and their links will be in the description. They've got a range of Final Fantasy VII t-shirts, hoodies and mugs, so be sure to check them out. Also, there will be a link in the description to our Final Fantasy Facebook group, where you'll find anybody who appears on the future podcasts. And basically also it gives you an opportunity, if you would like to jump on one of the podcasts with us, it gives you the opportunity to do that as well. So if that's something you'd be interested in, please do click the link below and join in the conversation. Today I'm joined by Rob and Chris from the Final Fantasy HQ group, and today we're going to talk about the Final Fantasy VII Remake and basically make our own theories of what we can expect. We're going to start with the Materia System. Rob, Nomura has said that regarding the Materia, it's going to be something like a skill. You can use it when you've set a Materia that has an effect that can be used in battle. Not much we've learned from that, but by the sounds of it, it's going to be similar to the remake, but maybe a bit more expansive. What would you like to see from the Materia System itself?
I would like to see it as intact as possible as to what it used to be in the original game. That's going to be really, really hard to do with certain materias that actually have whole entire menus associated with them, like the enemy skill materia. There's like a couple pages of different things you can pick. And I think that the only way that anyone is going to see the original materia system intact is if there's some moment in the battle system when the ATB bar fills. I'm not even sure what the ATB bar is, if it's, exactly like what it used to be in the original game. But I know at some point the battle's going to have to either slow down a lot, or it's going to have to almost pause in order for people to navigate all those menus and pick the different materia and all that they want to use. Which I'm not sure if we're actually going to get a battle system like that, because I know it's supposed to be action based. But if there's some type of slowdown, I think that they could maintain the materia system in its entirety. And that's what I would like to see. I just kind of don't have very high hopes that that's what we're going to get.
Yeah, but we'll come on to the battle system a bit more later on. We'll address that later on. Chris, as for the materia system, though, it's obviously it's going to be a bit more in depth. Personally, I wouldn't like to see it being so vanilla as just leveling up, say, for instance, Fire 1, Fire 2, Fire 3. I don't know if you see my recent materia system video, but I mentioned about a skill tree or a sphere grid similar to Final Fantasy X. What are your thoughts on the materia? How could we make it so it's a bit more in depth, so to speak?
My initial thought on the skill tree for it, like Final Fantasy X, kind of like irked me because Final Fantasy X had so many things to unlock. But when I'm thinking about it, is you can actually use that to your advantage, like make it so that you can't combine materias until they're both at least level 2 or something, and have a bunch of things to level up within the skill tree, like attack, speed, durability, strength,
magic plus, things like that.
Yeah, things to increase your HP. I would love to actually see that now that I'm thinking about it, because the combinations would be absolutely insane. But it is hard, like what Rob said with navigating the menus. Like, that's so many different things for you to do. So I would probably hope that it's just automatic passive abilities as well. So like, say you have Fire 1 or 2 and you attack somebody a few times, he'll automatically throw out a few fireballs too. You know what I mean? Like something like that.
Well, to be fair though, for Final Fantasy X Sphere Grid, I know how in depth it was, but that was for the whole. That was for the whole character's setup. It wasn't just the materia, was it, Rob? So, if it wasn't as in depth as say Final Fantasy X, but it still had, maybe if you went off, there was 3 different like segments you could go off. So one was all your magic attacks, one was maybe some type of support materials that we'd find in the game, and then the other was maybe some, I don't know, control, area of control, so to speak. So
Yeah.
Each version of the materia would have its own concept, but it wouldn't be as big as the Final Fantasy X sphere grid.
I
Not
think.
exactly. Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say. I think that. I think a sphere grid would actually work and work really well just for the support materia.
Mm-hmm.
All of the different, like the HP plus materia, the Magic plus materia, all of that. If you could grow your support materia in some type of a sphere grid, I think that would be cool because I don't know about other people, but me, I really didn't mess with the support materia hardly at all, except for the HP plus materia, like the elemental materia. I didn't really ever use that. I mean, I think that I mostly didn't use it because it kind of almost felt unnecessary. Because as the game progresses, you become so overpowered. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I think like if you could build your stats and your HP and your magic stats and all of that in some type of sphere grid, I think that'd be great. My only fear with the sphere grid is if you use a sphere grid to level up magic materia and summon materia, it would kind of take away from some of the exploring factor to the game. Like there wouldn't be any of those cool moments where you find materias out in the world, find different green materias. You could also even take the enemy skill materia and incorporate that into a sphere grid as well. But as far as the magic materias and the summon materias, I think that those should be something that are found out in the field.
Well, I just found a use for the 135th soldier shit we all collected a million of and never got anything for. Just make that to be an item you need to unlock the next tier in whatever.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And to be honest, once Rob mentioned about when you navigate the map and you find, for instance, when you find Comet in the Forgotten City, the way you could go about it maybe is not only XP grinding to level up your sphere grid. There might be a certain set of challenges that you've got to do to get a certain item, and that item may be needed to unlock a certain tier with some type of materia smith, so to speak. So you could actually change the locations where you find the materias with these items, or as you say, the collectible items like the soldiers that were in the game for no reason, and you could make them part of the sphere grid to obviously get the most out of your materia. But one thing that I wanted to mention as well, when you mentioned before about the elemental, like you didn't really use it because obviously once you get so far, there's just no need for it. I think that was the only, well, not the only downfall, I wouldn't say it's a downfall, it was the only part of Final Fantasy VII that I thought could have been explored a little bit better. They could have made each monster, for instance, a bit more weaker to say a certain element. And it was like the basis of all the other Final Fantasies that have come after it, where the Final Fantasy 10 and 12, they were heavily, you had to use certain type of magic to take down a certain monster. Yeah. So it was like their vanilla version of that. So in this game, that could possibly work a little bit better. Rob, we've already talked about it, but a lot of people have already said that certain materias won't work or will be pointless. I don't know which materias they actually mean, but from what I've read, it's more of the support materias. So maybe the likes of all elemental, quadramagic, is that? I'm not too sure if that's a support or the pink. But people have said these type of materials won't actually work. Does this system where they'd be in the sphere grid or skill tree make that possible to obviously to work in the remake?
I think some of them are probably still not going to work, even if they were in a sphere grid. Like, I can't really see much of a use for the throw materia.
Yeah, it was pointless, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of pointless even in the first game, because I think that even if you had like billions and billions of gil, I think that even then the damage max is 9,999 with throw. I feel like added cut might not have any use even in a sphere grid. 4 times cut probably wouldn't have any use. Slash all you could probably still have that in the game somewhere.
I don't think you could have have that really in an action-based battle system. For instance, he's not going to go around dead quick slicing
Well,
everybody, is he?
probably not, but you could just make, like the concept of when you level up /all to flash, you could just make the screen go, make it flash, and then,
Yeah.
Cloud's just still standing in the same spot, and then everyone takes damage. But a lot of the enemy skill materias, could be done away with, or not enemy skill materias, the command materias could just be done away with, I feel like, and just incorporated right into the sphere grid, to where rather than them be materias, they're just literally skills that your characters learn.
Maybe
Because
it's certain topics like this that are maybe Square Enix are finding it hard to address. Maybe they're finding it hard to actually address those specific areas of the game. Hence, why the game's maybe taking a little bit longer to produce.
I don't know if I would. I think it's just Square Enix. It just takes them long to produce anything these days. But it could be challenging, because I hope that they are trying to approach the remake in a way that like shows respect to the original. And I'm sure that they are kind of struggling trying to come up with some type of way to use certain materials. And like I said, I don't think that a sphere grid is a bad idea as long as they don't incorporate the green and red materials into it. No, I think that if they were to incorporate the support and the independent and the yellow materials into a sphere grid, I think that would be fine. And if they wanted to approach it in a way to keep all of us old school gamers from being upset, they could still make it to where you find those materials out in the field, and then they are unlocked within your sphere grid.
Yeah,
that's true too.
Either way, they've got a tough task on their hands, haven't they? Well, they've got a lot on the plate anyway. Let's put it that way. Next up, we've got on the agenda is the battle system. We now know, obviously, from reports that it is going to be an action-based battle system of some sorts. Chris, how is it going to work, and what are your thoughts on it in general?
Well, I'm looking at the controller now, and there's really only so many button options that you have. And with that many materia that we're all used to equipping on Cloud late game, 12, 13 of them, I don't understand how it's going to be possible to do all that navigating. Each button would have to have 2 functions for movement and battle. What else? The trackpad could probably be used, so you could probably use that for like magics and everything.
The way I see it working is it'll still have the same menu, like in the screenshots that we've seen, where it says attack, magic, summon, and item. They'll probably I can imagine them being on your D-pad. So if you press up, it goes to attack, right for magic, down for item, left for summon, or something of that sort, and then using the right stick maybe to navigate through the abilities. So you're still using your left stick to control your guy on the screen. Or maybe you can just literally bump in and out of movement and picking your summon quite quickly using those configurations. That's basically how I'd imagine it to work. But if it did work, that's another question.
Yeah, I just don't want it to be a hack and slash. Like, I'm really worried about that part. You know what I mean? Like, they want to get the younger audience into it, and that's what these younger kids like, is just hack and slash. But us, we like strategy. We like figuring out ways to destroy things. And in this brand new game, everything's going to have to be changed just slightly to make it more difficult for us, or else we're going to breeze right through it. So with the battle system, I figure if it's action-based, there has to be some sort of strategic element to it other than hack and slash. And how are you going to control your other 2 characters as well?
Yeah, there's got to be some type of ATB bar then, hasn't there, where people take the turns to a certain extent, or, because as you say, my problem with Final Fantasy 15 was the fact it was a hack and slash game. There was no strategic way that I remember defeating any of the bosses or any of the end game bosses, for instance. Rob, what's your thoughts on the battle system from what we've learned?
Well, what you just explained, moving your character with one stick and then selecting the menu with the other stick, that sounds really cool. It sounds really stressful, which there was a certain degree of stress when you were fighting a really tough monster back in the original. So that's cool. I think that would be great. I would definitely play that. I would approve of that. Another thing that would be cool is like I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the Materia System. If the ATB bar, which we've seen screenshots of the ATB bar, I think it'd be cool if once that filled up, it kind of went super slow-mo, kind of like the reflex mode in Metal Gear Solid 5.
Oh, cool.
And it would be cool to pick your whatever it is that you're wanting to do from that menu.
Is there something like that in GTA as well? When you slow down with Franklin and you can pick his shot off.
Oh yeah, in the car.
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
then
One of my biggest fears though is like in Final Fantasy 15, you were calling it a hack and slash game. It's almost not complex enough to even be called a hack and slash game because you literally just hold down a button and that's the whole fight.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think we'll all agree on that point.
Yeah.
So whatever happens, they've got to. I'd say that was even more stressful to figure out than the Materia System. Next on topic, the Gold Saucer, Chris. Obviously, the game's going to be a lot bigger than the original. Well, quite a lot bigger. How expansive can the mini games actually be?
Well, I mean, if you really think about it, these games are so huge on one single disc now. Like, these are next-gen consoles. So I feel like these mini games should really be mini games. Like, the new revamp, just revamping the graphics aren't enough. They have to, like, add a little bit extra to it. They got the motorcycle one. They can do different tracks and different courses. They got the submarine one, which I'm looking forward to because I want them to expand on the ground in that ocean because there's nothing in there except for Emerald Weapon and the reactor. That's it. And then what else? The arm wrestling one. That was kind of dumb, but it's still nostalgic. And then you got the basketball one that every single one of us got so angry at. I know it. I know all of you listening at home are going, yeah, you're right, because I know I'm right. Because trying to get
it sounds like an explosion. It's all your hopes and dreams exploding when the basketball hits the board.
Do racing, Chris?
The Chocobo racing is probably my favorite aspect of it, except for Choco Joe, the dude with the mountain chocobo. Because no matter what you do, he's always faster than you. But he better be in it because I want to whoop his ass again. And I want longer routes. I want more in-depth race courses. You know, they already had one.
Tournaments, maybe, a bit like Mario Kart.
Hell yeah! Throw multiplayer into this game. Let us all race chocobos against each other online.
That'd be cool. Rob, so one theory I had about the battle arena, where you can earn, obviously, you earn bits throughout the game. Could they implement the DLC content? So, for instance, the Amiga weapon that comes up quite often in the Final Fantasy series, could the battle arena be implemented into the DLC content?
I think that they should keep it how it was, but where you go in there and you do your 10 rounds and you get battle points and you can redeem items. But I think that it would be really cool if there was some type of DLC to where instead of fighting monsters in the battle arena, you could have player versus player in the battle arena. I think that would be cool. And to kind of expand on what Chris was talking about, all those mini games, I think that it would be cool if they could figure out a way to make those online. G-Bike probably wouldn't work like that, but there should be a G-Bike mini game leaderboard, or that submarine one. They could make that player versus player. All those submarines down there could be other people. Snowboarding, the snowboarding mini game, I think that'd be really cool if you could do like even a race mode where there's like 5 other players in there. I don't think that, obviously Final Fantasy VII is not an MMO. I don't want it to be an MMO, but those mini games, they could incorporate a lot of online stuff, I feel like, in there, and they could package that as some kind of DLC. Not that I really want any DLC, at least I don't really have to pay for it. but they could take a lot of those mini games online. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Definitely the Chocobo racing for sure.
Yeah.
I
Speaking of that,
could really see that working. Like you had challenges, maybe weekly or monthly challenges, where you had to win so many races with maybe, I don't know, a certain type of Chocobo, for instance. I could definitely see that winning. One thing that did get mentioned in the Facebook group is, though, would a P2P currency be implemented, Chris? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, what do you mean? Like you gain currency to unlock things,
Well,
or
yeah,
like you have to buy currency?
Both.
Because if I have to, oh no.
It's a bit stupid, but I can imagine them doing something where you maybe earn cosmetic items for your chocobos, for instance, or you could just buy. They definitely couldn't make it so your chocobos were faster, for instance. It'd all have to be cosmetic. I just wanted to cover that point because it got mentioned in the group.
I think that we should definitely. I mean, it's a conversation to have for sure. I think that it's something that everyone who's looking forward to this game needs to start thinking about after having seen what has happened to Metal Gear Survive and just Metal Gear Survive, Battlefield, all these games. There's DLC. It's just that's how it is. I think it's really unfortunate, but I think we need to prepare ourselves for it. I think that it would. If they're gonna do something like that with the gold saucer, I think it'd be cool for you to have the option to pay $2.99 to get a few thousand gold saucer points, or I forgot what they're called, or even like packs of battle points. You know what I mean? But I think that I think that they should keep it optional. I think that it should be completely feasible to spend in-game gil on gold saucer points. I forgot what they're called.
It's GP.
GP, yeah, it's GP. If they want to sell like packs of GP for a few dollars, I don't think that's.
You could even use that
idea.
little guy that turned up by the lift. The one who used to come out.
No. You don't use your credit card to get GP, sir.
I completely agree with you, man. I can't stand. Well, some paid DLC is okay if it's like a big chunk of gameplay.
Yeah, I can understand that. That's fine.
Microtransactions, I can't stand it. I really can't. It's like I said. I mean, it's inevitable. It's going to happen whether we want it to or not. So I just, hopefully they do it in a tactful way. Like cosmetic little accessories for characters. I think that's okay.
Something I can fully agree with is what you guys were saying before about the battle arena. The battle arena is something I'm looking forward to as well because it's supposed to test you in the game and you're supposed to get Omni Slash and those should still be there too. But if you can download Omega Weapon or you can download like maybe doppelgangers of your own crew with their materia set to fight against and like make it really hard and get special rewards for that. Yeah. Download extra Sephiroths or Genovas or fight 3 at one time or something. Like really challenge us, man, because we've been playing this game for over 20 years, dude. They're gonna have to step it up, man.
Yeah, they could bring out, as you say, doppelgangers from the other Final Fantasy, franchise, different bosses like Kefka maybe, and just different variants. Well, anyway, if the gold source has got some type of multiplayer, some type of multiplayer concept to it, I think we'll all agree that it would be awesome to see. Next up is the playable characters in Final Fantasy VII. In the remake, Chris, will Aeris die, or do you think you'll get a choice if she lives or dies?
Oh, dude, I mean, she's definitely dying. Like, they have to, that was the turning point for all of us. Like, you work so hard to build her up. You find out her limit breaks, do beast things for your party. They heal them, gives them all haste, makes them beat ass even better. And then she just dies. That like made you want to play the game more. That made you want to kill that silver hair prick, and, yeah, she's definitely going to die, but I just hope it's not during the first episode. I hope they don't, if it is during the first episode, that episode better be monumentally long and they better hold certain things back from being accessible in the first episode so that after she's dead, you have more stuff to do. Mm-hmm. Because we all know once she's dead, what do? Knights of the Round, weapons, Sephiroth. Yeah.
Rob, does she have to die?
She definitely has to die.
This poor girl. So good that she's not real. Like this poor girl.
I can't really think of any way where she could not die. It seems pretty much set in stone. In Final Fantasy VIII, when you get the way Phoenix works is you have like a 25% chance of Phoenix showing up and resurrecting your party. If they wanted to incorporate some type of ghostly type apparition of Eris that can randomly show up and heal a party if certain conditions are met, I think that
would be hot.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of cool.
Like slightly transparent.
Yeah.
Or translucent
like
or
over
whatever.
their shoulders, like a guardian angel type of thing.
Yeah, you could even add some cutscenes maybe where cutscenes from like Eris's perspective, like watching what's happening with the party, and even have some cool dialogue for her. Something like she's always with you, even though she's gone.
You can add Zack in there too.
Yeah.
What would happen maybe though if one of the, because obviously we know it's in episodic format now. So what happens if one of the episodes is after you defeat Sephiroth? So the bit between the endgame credits and then for when you see Nanaki running up Cosmo Canyon with all his little pups. What if one of the episodes is basically an extension on the story where maybe Eris came back through the live stream of some sort? Would that maybe appeal to fans, or is it just if she's dead, she's dead?
I mean, fucking Sephiroth did it. Why can't she?
Yeah, I suppose. So that moves us on nicely, actually, to the rest of the playable characters. Because obviously, this Cat Sith, Yuffie, and Vincent, will they have more of a storyline in the game, or is that something we might see expanded with DLC later on, Rob? What do you think?
Well, I mean, it depends, because when you get Vincent, you can get him like on the first disc, and you can get Yuffie on the first disc. So if they like made it so that you couldn't get them until later, it would help expand the story, because they would be forced to expand around everything else that they had first.
I think Vincent has enough of a story. I mean, they could expand upon it a little bit more. It kind of comes in bits and pieces throughout the game, sort of. You get the first portion of his story, I believe, when you first get him in the mansion. And then you get a little bit more once you go to Lucrezia's cave. It might be cool to just get a whole decent size. They could do it kind of like they do the flashback in Calm, however you guys pronounce it, where it's actually a playable part, and maybe even have a save point or two in it, and just give us all the story all at once, instead of making us go to Lucrezia's cave and all that. I feel like he has more than Yuffie. Yuffie doesn't really get a whole lot. There's her whole side quest, but I'd like to see more about the Wutai War. I'd like for them to expand that for sure.
Flashbacks on that. Because they didn't even go into that too much in Crisis Core. Like, you were there, but you didn't even see it. They just talked about it. Yeah. Like, you were in one of the wars, but, like, you didn't even really see what was going on. Yeah. So that's a really good point. I would like to see that as well.
Cool. So on that point, Eris dies, maybe more of a storyline or whatever from the characters, but will they make any more playable characters available in the game? Like any of the current, maybe Wedges and Biggs or whatever. Will they make any more of the characters a playable feature, or will they just keep the same amount, do you think, Rob?
I bet that you, at some point in the reactor bombing, I bet you'll be able to not necessarily control, but at least fight alongside Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse.
Will he be able to use them long term? I know. Like the obviously die, but is there a point where maybe they don't die, they're just badly injured and they get back? Because once that scene's over, you never hear them mentioned again, so it's not like the rest of the storyline's controlled by what happens. So some people have said that maybe making a certain character event, like, well, it's just for me, there's not enough characters. Once Eris dies, there's not enough characters for instance, like I know Final Fantasy 15's not got many characters, but for the way that Final Fantasy 7 was built, I just feel like there's one or two characters missing to expand on and to use in general.
I think that it would be nice to face Sephiroth at the end. Granted, I'm talking about the original game here. When you split the party up into 3 different parties, it does feel like you're missing some people. I'm just trying to think of who would take that spot. It would be cool if you got someone in place of Eris at some point.
I'm gonna take Dios. Man who's forever
his
in
grandfather, Bugenhagen or whatever his name is.
Bugenhagen.
Some type of like wizard stroke mage or something along those lines.
Yeah,
hey man, it was just petrify. Why don't you give this dude why don't you give Seto some petrification cure or something and get him back in the game?
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Right, on to game depth now. Obviously, the amount of detail and towns and things that they got into the original, as you say, on a smaller space was incredible. So obviously nowadays the game's going to be 10 times bigger. The towns in general, will we be able to explore them a bit more, Chris?
I'm looking Junon, whatever. That, for instance, they had all the shops lined up against the walls and everything, but there were also a lot of buildings that you just couldn't go into. It's 2018. You're trying to impress people, dude. Let me go into every building and let somebody get mad at me and throw me out, or let some of them be unaccessible. But all those shops, all of that, I want to be able to go behind the buildings to have to find secret items or weapons, or maybe there's a shady weapons dealer back there or something. I don't know. Right now they have a great template for it. It was already massive for the game that it was back in the day, and I want them to do the same thing for now. I want them to do something so extra massive that hasn't been done before, which is what they did with the first one. Because the first one was 3 discs long. Nobody ever played a game that friggin' huge before.
Yeah, for me, it's Midgar, Rob. There's a lot of slums, a lot of sectors. It's just got to be more expansive so you can see the whole city.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want the towns to be expanded, but my only worry with that is, I know when I played Final Fantasy 15, the other town on the first continent, I can't remember the name, Lestalem. Yeah, I think Lestalem. Is it Lestalem?
Altisha or Lestalem?
No? Lestalem. Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Is Lestalem. Yeah, it was fairly big. There were some parts that you could kind of see in the background that you couldn't actually explore. But for me, that town, walking around in there was so irritating and confusing, really confusing sometimes. But I think that the reason why I got so irritated about it, about trying to navigate the town, is because in 15 there's thousands of pointless side quests. So I don't think we would probably have to worry about that too much with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Midgar, it would be cool to explore more of Midgar and check out all the different areas. The struggle is probably going to be finding reasons to go to those areas. And then putting enough content in Midgar to make it all explorable.
Yeah, well, for me, Final Fantasy 15, the actual towns were a step down in size compared to the likes of Final Fantasy, Lightning Returns, for instance. There were some cities in that particular game, and obviously map areas that were absolute. I know it was more of a linear game, but there were some areas that were just they were humongous compared to Final Fantasy 15. So I hope they step that side of it up again and obviously make the towns more explorable. And for instance, when you enter one of the towns or cities, it takes you a good 5 or 10 minutes to get through it to the other side, rather than just a few linear directions that we see in Final Fantasy 15. That moves us nicely on to traveling NPCs. If the game is going to be expansive, it's going to take a while to get from the North Crater to Medeal, for instance. So people have talked about traveling NPCs, Chris. Maybe having some type of system in place, whether it involves the vehicles, like the Highwind and that, I don't know, or whether it's going to be by town. What's your thoughts on some traveling type of NPCs?
Well, I mean, in the original, you get a buggy, but you never see anybody else with one unless it's in the cutscene, but they're nowhere to be found on the world. You know, like, I would love to see cars driving back and forth, like in Final Fantasy 15. I would like to, like, help people on the side of the road. Like, I know some side quests are, like, boring or monotonous, but it adds to the game, and that will give you reasons to go into certain areas for no reason.
Yeah, so
like some stupid side quest let you unlock it. You find a treasure chest or something.
Yeah, so maybe more concept on the world map then. So, for instance, going from, I don't know, just based from the Costa del Sol to the Coral. So more of maybe some more detail in the sense of roads and direction.
Yeah, definitely. I want to see roads, not just green. Like, there were so many forests in that game, but nobody really counts them as forests because Cloud runs through them and the top of his head is seen when he's running through it on the map. But it's not until you get into a fight that you see that you're actually in something with huge trees. So it'd be really awesome to see that out there and, like, run through an actual forest to go find Yuffie or Yuffie. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. They can expand on it so much.
So basically, each forest has got its own little pathway and a bit more of a bit more detail. So overall, we're just talking about more detail within everything, really. Rob, concept of the vehicles. So as Chris mentioned, there's the buggy. Obviously, we've got the Highwind, the submarine. How are they going to work with an expansive world map? Will it all be manual again, or will that maybe be part? You'll have to control the Highwind, for instance, but maybe you can go to the deck where Sid is and choose a destination if you really wanted to, like we've seen in similar newer Final Fantasy titles, maybe.
Well, it's. If they based it a lot off of, you guys were talking about traveling NPCs, and all that, and that makes me think about Final Fantasy 15's whole vehicle concept. I think that if they just based it off of that, but then expanded it more, I think that it would work out really nice. It's nice. It is nice to see some other people traveling around in the world.
I want to see people on chocobos too. Sorry.
Yeah, that'd be cool. The Highwind, it might get a little bit. They would have to have a really powerful game engine in order to, like, allow you to fly the Highwind, in the same manner that you could fly it in Final Fantasy VII. I don't think that the Highwind is necessarily used to get to any locations that you can't get to otherwise. I think that it would be, in order to make everything work, I think that it's probably going to be a situation where you just go to the deck and talk to Sid and pick a place to go.
Yeah.
I can't imagine them being able to incorporate the Highwind flying at the altitudes that it is into everything else.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, then how are we going to chase down Ultimate Weapon and make them explode over the ancient forest? I hope they can let you pilot it manually. That was so awesome.
Yeah, I think it'll be up. I personally think it'll be down to yourself if you want to fly from one side of the map to the other and take 10 minutes to do so, or you just want to go to the NPC. Because in Lightning Returns, you could use was it like a monorail or something? You could just use it to travel in between towns and things, but then you could get off it and explore each area. So with all that being said, though, one concept which would really, really, really bug me is we talked a lot there where it's quite linear in gameplay if there was traveling NPCs. if the vehicles weren't manual. Linear gameplay, Rob. What's your thoughts on it?
I don't know.
It's a no
I
go.
think
Let's face it. We don't want a linear gameplay.
if they, and this is kind of a prediction, really, with the game being episodic, I would not be surprised if you could only explore so much of the world within each disc. You know, that to me, I don't want it to be that way, but that's how I'm thinking it's going to be. You know, like disc 1 might be, or the first episode might be the first continent. The second episode might be, you know, the second continent with Cosmo Canyon and Costa del Sol and all that. And then the third disc would probably be where you could travel between the different, you know, the entire world. But I imagine that there's probably going to end up being some loading screens.
If it's going to be hard for the likes of the Highwind to navigate manually, if it's going to be quite a big game, I'm going to ask a question which maybe a lot of Final Fantasy VII fans won't like. Would it be worth waiting until the PlayStation 5 comes out?
Dude, the only reason I have a PlayStation fucking 4 right now is because of this game. So they better release this shit or give me back my money for this friggin' PlayStation 4 so I can get a PlayStation 5 when that comes out.
I'm just asking the question. It just made me think of it then. If the game is so expansive and so big, would it be something that maybe the memory could handle on the next gen? But we'll move on We'll move on swiftly, should I say, from that. And we'll move on to the episodic format that we are obviously learning more about as we read more on the internet. So XP caps per episode. Where's your stance on that, Rob? What do you think?
I don't. I wouldn't want that, and I don't think that that's something that they would have to do. I don't think that they would have to incorporate that. You know, as long as your save file transferred over. It sounds like you guys have both played Final Fantasy 13 a lot. Did it do it in 13? Was there an XP cap?
Well, basically what it was like previous Final Fantasies, you know, like Final Fantasy X-2, Final Fantasy, you know, they had different parts, but the storyline was all... So for that to work, and it would be episodic in that format, they'd have to fit all the storyline in on your first episode. It depends on how big the gap is as well in between the releases. If we're only talking 2 or 3 months, and by the time that 2 or 3 months comes around, you still have completed the first one, and you do get to carry all your everything over onto the second disc, I don't think it'd be that much of a problem. But to make it work, like for instance, Lightning Returns, I know we keep on going back to it, but that's the most, apart from Final Fantasy VII, that's the most recent. Final Fantasy 15. That's the more of the concept that I'm leaning to. It's a completely different storyline, so it'd basically have to be based after, obviously after you save the world, so to speak. So on that point, it actually starts from zero again, though. In the other, obviously the next. Okay. So it's kind of like it's catch-22.
It just starts over. I get
exactly,
what you're saying.
Exactly, it's a completely different game, completely different story mode. You're even controlling a completely different hero, for instance. So I personally, I don't know about you, Chris, but XP caps per episode just sounds like torture, to be honest.
It actually is, because I've gone through it before with a game called Dot Hack, and the game was amazing, but at the end of the first disc, you really it's not so much of a cap, but it's like if it takes 30,000 experience to level up, every monster is only giving you 1 and 2. You know what I mean? It's such a drastic change. And then you switch over to the next side, and then those same monsters give you like 500 each. You know, I don't want it to be like that. That's just so retarded. If I want to grind, if I can't go to the next episode, I'm going to grind out as best as I can. You know, I'm going to get all those items to wait until the next thing. I'm going to be prepared for whatever they have to come at me.
Mm-hmm. I think that, you know, in the past, like with okay, let me just say this: as far as like experience caps go, I don't think that it's something that Square Enix would have to do. And the reason I say that, like, as far as like technology wise and go, and all that goes, if you look at, like Battlefield 4, when the Xbox One came out and Battlefield 4 released on the Xbox One, you could actually transfer your entire save file over to Battlefield 4 on the Xbox One, and you kept all of your stats, like your score, your number of headshots, all that stuff. What else can you do that with? There's quite a few games that.
Oh yeah, you can do that with all the Call of Duties, and I think you could do the same with GTA when GTA was on the 360 and then went over to the Xbox One. So that side of things shouldn't be a problem at all. Another point that I'd like to address regarding the original is your HP cap and your damage cap. So obviously being at 9999. They've surely got to increase that, Chris, this time around.
Oh yeah, they definitely are. I mean, every Final Fantasy is doing it right now, and the reason why I think they need to do that is, if we can all remember, halfway through the game in the original, we were all dealing 9,999. By the end of the game, we still had monsters like Emerald Weapon and Ruby Weapon that we had to like really try to kill, and it was difficult. And no matter what kind of attack it was, whether it was the extra sounding critical strike or just a run-of-the-mill attack, everything you did was 9,999. So, like, it really makes you feel, like, less powerful. And it's just kind of annoying that you, like, what's the point in telling me that I just hit them with a critical attack, which is supposed to be stronger than a regular one, and it's all 9,999? There has to be some kind of better scaling. Like, I don't want to sit there and have a basic attack deal the max damage that it possibly can. That's just ludicrous to me. Like, I feel like they have to increase the hit points of your enemies, increase your max hit points, increase the amount that you can do, and do the math a little better than they did in the last one.
Rob, what's your thoughts?
I just want I want more of a challenge. I want stronger monsters, and I think the bosses could be a little bit stronger too. They as far as like the damage cap being 9,999, I mean, I'm down for whatever. It doesn't really matter to me too much. I think at the end of the day, what the most important thing is just how strong enemies are. I want the game to stay challenging up until the very, very end. They could even potentially make the monsters and everything, monsters, bosses, all of it, level to your character. If they did it that way, then, we would all still have a challenge no matter how powerful we are.
That'd take the grind out of it, though, to level up. For instance,
it would be like Final Fantasy VIII, because you could beat that game on like level 12, and it's actually easier because the monsters level to you. So if you keep your level low, their levels are low, and then they don't acquire certain attacks, I believe. Don't quote me on that last one, but I think the higher level they are, sometimes some monsters have different attacks.
They did. They would have different drops, different magic attacks, and all that. I mean, there is that fear of being able to beat the game at level 5, but in Final Fantasy VIII, I even at my very first playthrough when I was a kid, obviously I didn't, I hated the grind. The random battles they would get annoying, whatever, but I would still struggle fighting bosses. Like I remember when I was a kid, I was still stuck in the Lunatic Pandora trying to fight that weird robot thing. I mean, I don't think if they were going to do it, I don't think that they should do it exactly like how they did in Final Fantasy VIII, but I just want more of a challenge during fights. I don't want to be able to wipe the floor with everything.
I feel like they should probably remove the leveling portion of the system as it is, and just, instead of leveling up by levels, you level up like your health, you level up your attack, you level up your speed with the sphere grid thing that we were talking about earlier. You know what I mean? It's kind of like Lightning Returns. I actually like that, because as you keep going through the game, you just keep leveling up your like hit points and all that. let the level cap be 99,000 hit points when you level it up to that point, which would require you to do certain things, like which reinstates you having to go to certain areas of the map. Maybe certain monsters only chill in a certain area and you got to go find them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
make sure you like really utilize everything. And I know there's going to be people who are going to try and blow through this game. There's going to be somebody within a week that beats it, but that ain't going to be me, bro, because I'm going to be exploring everything.
Yeah, same. Every nook and cranny, I'll be in it. So with that being said, the game is going to be, obviously we know it's going to be more expansive. The world map's going to be bigger. Are there going to be maybe an introduction? Well, firstly, an introduction of a more expansive base of monsters. So maybe ones that we've seen in other titles, but also maybe more expansion on the map. Maybe like for instance, Final Fantasy VIII had the Heaven and Hell Island where all the harder monsters were to level.
Yeah.
Could we maybe see not necessarily more map, but that's not a bad thing. But maybe 100% more monsters to fight, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool if there was more monsters. I would like more mini bosses, you know, like really, really tough monsters that you only have to fight once. I think that'd be really, really cool. You know, I almost wish that in the remake they would almost have like, I don't know, more lore about the monsters. That's something that they should start trying to do with all Final Fantasies, is give us some lore about the monsters. You know, like when you're fighting those, what are they? I don't know I can't remember what they're called, but they're in the Shinra building, and it's like a flying robot with the body of a chainsaw, and it's like moving like a snake.
Yeah, dude.
I want to see that. I want to see that thing like drop out of the ceiling and like alarms going off. I think that, you know, that'd be cool. Some stuff like that.
Are we talking about the thing that chases you to the end of the bridge?
Yeah, that thing. Like, I want to, you know, give me a cutscene of that thing, like activating inside of a warehouse, and then like, you know, running cars off the road as it comes up onto some on-ramp to get onto the highway.
That would be pretty badass. And they could put a bunch of that in like the Shinra library when you break into the Shinra headquarters, or even the Shinra mansion where Sephiroth's going through all those books. I want to read some of those books too, not just what he read.
I'm sure they'll add quite a lot more into the game in that sense, which will be pretty cool to catch up on. Finally, we're going to move on to the graphics. Obviously, a lot's changed since '97. I think that's, you know, something you'll agree with, Chris. So, what are you looking forward to most, you know, about the remake?
With that, honestly, it might sound kind of dumb, but the most satisfying thing I'm going to see is people running around with fingers. You know, like, I just feel like it's just going to be so satisfying seeing Barrett's hand go from a metal hand, like an actual metal hand, to a gun, not just a square box, to like, oh, look, I have a machine gun now. And then my favorite sword in the entire game is actually not Ultima Weapon, but it's the Apocalypse Sword, just because of the design. So I'm really eager to see that with some detail. I want to see weather. Like, the only time you see like any kind of weather or anything is usually the northern cave area when you have to climb up the thing and you see it's like snowing. But where's the rain, man? Where's the wind? You're in these giant open plains. You're in the desert. I don't see no tumbleweeds or no nothing. You know, just so I'm really excited for that. And then the water too.
Yeah,
I want to see monsters under the water. Day and night is yes, that would be nice as well.
Yeah. Rob, how about you? What are you looking forward to seeing in 4K?
Well, probably the coolest advancement in graphics in the Final Fantasy universe, I feel like, is the way the magic works in 15. I want to see that in 7, but bigger. What I'm talking about is when you cast a spell, I want to see it actually change the environment for a period of time after you cast it. I seen there's a lot of that in 15. Like when you cast a fire spell and you're out in a prairie, it catches the grass on fire and it turns the ground black and smoky. Same thing when you cast an ice attack. It's like there is a literal blizzard in one controlled spot.
And the summons as well, don't they? They leave a massive area of attack.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Summons did the same exact thing. And to be honest, I've never seen that in any other RPG, even on modern consoles, other than in 15. And I definitely want to see that in Final Fantasy 7.
Oh yeah, but I don't want them to make it so that it's just a random event that happens with these summons. Though I want it to be like a thought process, you know?
Right. I agree. I definitely want to be in control when the summons show up. I'm just referring to the changes that happen in the environment. I think that's something that needs to continue to be a thing and make it better.
That's definitely a sexy idea. I love that.
Very good point as well. Like maybe like when Comet comes down, it leaves a crater for a few seconds, or when Ultima hits, for instance, if there's any grass, it looks like it's toxic and it dies. You know, things like that would be really cool. I'm looking forward to the Guardian Forces. I think even though the Guardian Forces, the summons weren't controlled in Final Fantasy 15. I think they got the moment with the soundtrack in the background, the whole ambience around the summon coming down. I think it was pretty cool. It was quite a monumentous like occasion when it come down. You're like, oh yeah, here comes Leviathan, blah blah blah. But if they captured that in the same light but made them obviously manual, and then they came in, that would be so much better. So I'm looking forward to seeing them, and maybe when you attach different armor, it shows up in battle rather than just the generic skins that they wear.
Yeah. Put green glow, red glow, all that like you see in the videos, or like in Advent Children when you put it in his arm.
Yeah, just little aspects of that, which obviously they've implemented in the newer Final Fantasies. It's going to be really cool to obviously.
I've always wondered what a bangle was.
Is that the little wrist thing he has with the studs on it?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I have no idea. I just know
never change it, so you never see if it's if that's the case. Right. Well, I think we're out of time. Really, I think that's probably a good place to call it till the next time. So before we go, Rob, anything you want to plug regarding obviously what you're doing project wise?
I'm actually I have a YouTube channel, and if you are into classic PS1 era JRPGs, you can come hang out with me at www.youtube.com/C/Stewtude with a capital S and a capital T.
The link will be in the description for you anyway, guys. Yeah, it'll be easier that
way.
Chris,
I'll definitely be hitting up that link myself. To be honest,
right on, brother.
Chris, how about you? Have you got anything you want to plug?
I usually stream on Twitch. I do stream Final Fantasy 7 quite often for fun strategies and just to beat the hell out of Emerald Weapon. Mostly I play first player games. My name on there is Zombie Jaegerman. Zombie Space Jaegerman, and I just want people to come chill, man. Yeah. Come have fun.
I'm sure if we continue doing these pods, we'll get to know each other and we can all hang out together. But I think one thing we're all going to be doing is we're all going to be streaming the remake when it comes out. So everybody else catch us doing that. Right. Well, listen. Thanks for joining us, guys. We appreciate you obviously taking the time out to listen to the whole thing, because this has obviously gone on for quite a while, but there was so much to talk about. Our next pod will be on potential DLC, and that's going to be a cracker. So until then, it is. So until then, guys, take care.